welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Celeste Hartwell, and we are a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women, by women. Unofficially, we interview women who are making a shit ton of money and breaking all the rules. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into it. Hello. Welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I am your host, Celeste Hartwell, and today we have a really special episode for you. I'm so excited to be live here both on YouTube and Facebook. If you are listening to us audibly, know that you can always tune in live on Facebook and YouTube and comment, and we will see what's going on and we'll have a conversation with you. But if you're catching this, on the replay, if you will, just via audio podcast, we love you as well. Please feel free to always visit divinefeminine.leaders.com and, leave any comments on the podcasting page as you feel called to share. We'd love to hear your feedback. Today, I wanted to start, as I have been starting, with the Divine Feminine Oracle deck by Meghan Watterson. And I am a little bit giggling about this card pull for today because this is exact same card pull as what we had last week. And it's Ariadne. She is the mistress of the labyrinth. And she says, "My soul knows the way, and the only way out is through." And I think that that's so powerful and true, as we talked about last week. It is one of those things where I've been caught up in this in the past of, I don't want to feel my negative emotions. My negative emotions are bad, etc. But the only way out is through. And so it says again, she represents the love and support available to us when we dare to be courageous. When your soul selects this card, Ariadne is a symbol of the hope, the divine assistance, and the step-by-step process we can take to move through a difficult time or to confront an injustice in our life. She helps, her message is that our courage is always in some way rewarded. When we seek to end an unnecessary pattern or routine that is no longer serving us, even though we initially created it in the effort to keep us safe, it can feel as insurmountable as facing a horned part man, part beast that lives in the dark maze inside us. Pure terror. But the soul always wants our freedom. The divine is what liberates, not confines. So again, the soul voice meditation in this book, they're always really beautiful. And it says, what allows me to feel supported while doing the inner work? And my soul knows the way, the only way out is through. So I'm excited to see how this kind of weaves into through our interview today. As again, this has come up for us yet again. So again, this is Celeste Hartwell. And today I am so honored to be introducing you to Meghan Smith. Meghan is a no bullshit life coach who has transformed the lives of other women to level up their businesses, their marriages, their motherhood, and most importantly, their relationships to themselves. Coming from a very successful career as a lawyer and now a spiritually driven coach, Meghan is a unique combination of head and heart. She is a testament that intuition, self-love, and spirituality are keys to an impactful and fulfilled life. And so I am so honored to be welcoming Meghan to the show because we have a lot of similarities in our lives, and I'm just so honored that you are joining us. Thank you so much, Meghan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I just got my little goosebumps that I get when I'm really excited about something. So yay.
Oh, I love that. So tell me a little bit about your transition from being an attorney to being a life coach, and what did that look, and just tell us all the things.
180, right?
Right.
So I will say that I would not have related to myself as a spiritual person until very recently in my life. And now I'm ride or die, although it's still something I'm, learning to integrate in my life, but I'm committed to living a spiritual life. So, I went to law school because I was afraid, really, the world scared me. And that seemed like a good way to prove my worth to the world. and B, like it would take care of me financially, that if like that I wasn't going to be okay unless I found this thing to do that A made me look good and B would pay me a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up there. And then the way that I got out was, I mean, the simplest 2020 version, like not the year 2020, but like hindsight's 2020. The hindsight version is that when I had my daughter, I just it forced me to look at like, what do I actually want to do with my life? Like it just forced me to be really intentional. It didn't force me. It had me look in the mirror and say, like, is this how I want to spend my time? Because now my time is divided truly. Before you have a kid, your time is all yours. And so
Right.
you can kind of be a bit more frivolous with it, you think, because it doesn't really matter to anybody or anyone what you do. And then when you have a kid, you're like, okay, my time is now divided between me and this other living human that I need to take care of. And my time is a little bit more precious now. And so that was one thing that I considered. And the other thing was like, what do I want to teach this human about the world? What do I want to teach her about money? What do I want to teach her about her calling, her purpose on this earth, So I was a lawyer. I got pregnant. I went on maternity leave, and I live in Canada where you get a full year off. Yay, Canada. And so I took my full year off, and they paid me in Canada. Your employers often pay you to go on leave as well. So they paid me $30,000 over the course of a year. But I had to pay it back if I didn't go back. So, the year came, and I actually booked a date back at work because I talked myself into it. I thought, it's just a year, it's $30,000, it'd be really nice, I can make it work. But I was really dreading it. And basically a week before my return date, I called them and I said, I can't do this. I just had this now I know it was my intuition, right? And at the time I would have just said it was, I just can't. And so I paid them back $30,000. And it was for those reasons. I just kept thinking like, a year's a really long time to do something that I hate and to not see my kid. And what if this is my last year on earth? Is this really what I want to do for $30,000? No, thanks. And then I don't want to teach my daughter that her happiness is less important than money, or that money is more important than her fulfillment.
Right.
So I can't do this in good conscience, And so I didn't go back to that. And then I took a law type job, which was great for a while. It paid me really well. The hours were great. I loved the people that I worked with, it was kind of using my legal training, and it was interesting. So I thought, this is it. Like like it checks all the boxes. I get to live in Vancouver, British Columbia, which is this beautiful city. And I walk to work, and I lived right on the ocean, and it was amazing. But I was still miserable. After a year and a half, I was like, oh man, this isn't it. And this sucks, because I really thought this was it. I really thought I could make this beautiful shape of me fit into this little box and just have that be enough. And it was hard. It was really hard to see like, this isn't the thing. And I couldn't ignore that voice that was like, you're not really using your gifts here, and I didn't understand that my gifts were separate than what I was good at, because I was good at this and I got a lot of accolades for it. I was always the best. Clients love me. My bosses love me. Like they wanted me to buy into the company. Like I just was a star in everything that I did. So I thought that must be my purpose.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so I hired a coach around that time.
Well, I just want to pause you for a moment,
please.
though, because I really want to point that out, because I think that I had a very similar aha moment in my corporate career, which is like, I'm really good at this, so why isn't this my purpose? And I think that a lot of women think that way when we're buying into like what society has told us that we need for whatever security, safety, ego, like whatever that is, or family, or upbringing, etc. And then being like, but it's not actually fulfilling. So I just wanted to like tease that out a little bit, because I think that's so vitally important. And I know that was a huge thing in my life as well. Yeah. And people were like, how can you walk away from this stability? I was in my career for 18 years. Like, how can you walk away from that after so long, and you're good at it and everybody loves you. And it's like, but that's not actually the thing, you know?
Totally.
So
Totally.
kudos to you. Like,
Yeah.
congratulations to you.
Yeah. And I
For
didn't
what?
know it at the time. Like, it's easier for me to articulate it now. At the time, it was more confusing and more like, I don't know what this is. But I can see now that there's a difference between getting paid for what your ego knows how to do and all of the things that it's crafted over the years, which is what was happening, right? I knew how to get the answer. I knew how to be really good with clients. I knew how to, like, I knew nuances, and I was really good at that. I was great at making arguments. My brain works really logically. And that's all ego stuff. Not that it doesn't serve me really well in what I do now, but I was purely getting paid for my ego. And I wasn't getting paid for this like soft, gushy center. And it was like, oh, it didn't feel good. And like I said, at the time, it wasn't clear to me, but now it is. I can see it clearly now. So, and this is something a lot of my clients bring to me too. They're like, isn't it like, if I'm good at it, isn't that my purpose?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, but I let's keep digging, because probably not, you know? And like I said, those skills still serve me. Those skills are still really valuable in this job, but I'm getting paid from I'm making my money because I'm like tapped into my intuition, and I'm using it to actually support people tap into theirs, which is a big difference. So, yeah.
I love that. So then how did you come across life coaching, and how did you step into
Yeah.
that?
So I actually hired a coach because I thought I've always struggled with my body image issues, and I've always been overweight. And I ran into this program called Hungry for Happiness, that was basically group coaching for women who struggle with food and body, which, like, who doesn't really? Um, but so I signed up for that because I thought maybe that's what's dissatisfying. That maybe if I got that sorted out, my relationship with myself and my body, then I could enjoy this career, right? Maybe that's really what's going on here.
Mhm.
And so I did that. It was a 6-month group coaching program. And through that, I saw really clearly, I'm like, oh, this actually isn't about food. Like, it is, like, I have a messed up relationship with food that I need to heal, but it's actually a lifetime of denying my inner voice is what this
Mm.
is, right? I use food as a way to numb the pain of that and the discomfort that I've completely disconnected from myself, and I've been abandoning myself for years. So, through that program, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I think that I believe that I could actually get paid to do something that I love. And that was a big deal for me. Like, the idea that I could get paid and love my job and have this really great life, I was like, that is not for me. That is for other magical people. And I don't have that luxury because I don't know what. I don't know what I thought that people had that I didn't, but I thought that, like, these are these magical people who are entrepreneurs and could make money doing this thing. And I was like, I kind of sucked, but I was good at this thing. But I started to shake that up a bit, and I was like, okay, if I believed that me, little old me, could get paid to do something that lit me up, what would that be? And then it was really clear that it was coaching. I mean, coaching had something that had interested me, but I thought I was such a piece of crap that I couldn't, like, and I thought coaches needed to know everything and needed to tell people how to live their lives, which is not true. And, before law school, I'd also considered doing a degree in a master's of psychology to be a therapist. So it wasn't a total curveball that, like, I wanted to be working with people and talking to people. So coaching was like really the only thing that was like, that's what I want to do. I want to talk to people every day, and I want to have them share the details of their lives with me intimately, and see their darkest secrets and their greatest light, and support them in that. That's what I want to do. And then so from there, I just started, this is the first step to me of, like, coming out of the closet as, like, a coach or wanting to do, like, a more light work profession when you're a kind of in corporate world, is you start, like, teasing it with your friends and family and seeing what they say. You're like, wouldn't it be hilarious if I became a coach or something, and, like, seeing what people say, and, and you start saying that stuff, and people are like, oh yeah, like, you expect them to be like, oh my God, why would you do that? But people are like, oh yeah, that would be great for you. And I'm like, okay, and just sort of started, like, practicing saying it out loud. And then I got pregnant a second time with my son, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have another year off. Why don't I just see what, like, maybe I'll take a course. Maybe I'll start dabbling and seeing what happens. And then next thing I knew, my son was 3 months old. I found this year-long coach training program that was really intense. I signed up for it. So I had a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. I signed up for this coach training course, and within 3 months, less than that, I had my first paying client. Um, and I just kept taking clients on, and then it was time to go back to my job, and I didn't. And I've been doing that ever since. So I'm going into my 4th year of business full time as a coach, which is pretty crazy.
That's incredible. Congratulations. I just want to
Thank you. Yeah.
really congratulate you because I know personally, and I love how you're able to articulate it, how it wasn't clear in the moment, right? Like
No.
it felt muddy and it felt uncomfortable, and it's just like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just know that it's not this, right? And then giving yourself that space and time and um and I feel so often like it's beautiful how like you get led down another path of like, oh, well, I'm going to try and work on my body and like
Totally.
work on this, and then we'll see what happens, like if that's going to fix all my problems, right? And I really want to point out too, I think you mentioned something about, when you said that you felt like other people could be coaches,
Mm-hmm.
but not you, like you didn't have that in you.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is so common where we put other people on a pedestal, like
Totally.
higher than us, right? And so talk a little bit about how you help people kind of tear that down and get off of, realize like we're all human beings in a body and we all have the ability to do,
Yeah.
whatever we feel called to do.
Totally. Yeah, it's so funny. Like I'm so far from that now that it's like hard for me to get back there. Although I still put people on a pedestal because I think that's a very human thing to do. But this is my experience is that people either put people on a pedestal or they put themselves on one, right? Like it's the
Yes.
better than less than thing that we do.
Right.
Which is just a form of, it's just our ego trying to find our place in the world, right? And like, where do I fit so I don't get too big for my britches or whatever, right? Like, because we're so scared of someone telling us we're too much or, who do we think we are or whatever. So we play this game of like, okay, where do I land? And if this person's above me, I got to find someone that I'm above. So I think your question was, how do I support people with that and seeing?
Yeah.
So I call into question their belief system. I mean, so much of coaching is just asking questions and getting curious and like, oh, well, so like, who told you that? Where'd you learn that? Have you ever seen anyone doing it differently? Like just really calling into question, and people get it pretty quickly. I mean, that's the
Right.
magic of coaching is people have it here. People know that putting people on pedestals or putting themselves on a pedestal is not satisfying or fulfilling, but it's all we know how to do. It's just a strategy we learned. And so that's our automatic. And so it's getting people out of that automatic and having them stop and look and go, okay, is that really true? Is it true? Like what I might even ask, like, what does that person have that you don't? And as soon as they go to speak it out loud, they're like, oh, it sounds so silly when I say that. Or they
Right.
really believe it. Like that person has this. Well, how do you think they got that? Instead of this magic, that's what I used to think. I just think these people had something, and it wasn't even just coaches. It was like entrepreneurs or people who had like, were making their lives really fulfilling. I just was like, I don't have that, and I couldn't even have really told you what it was. So if you ask people that, and it just kind of makes them realize, like, oh, I don't actually know,
Mm.
and then they can start to see themselves as just a human, or themselves and that other person is just a human being who probably it was really hard for them to get where they went. They probably had to face their fears. They probably have imposter syndrome every single day still. This idea that you get to some point and you stop being fearful or you don't have imposter syndrome anymore. That's another thing I say. Like, you're always going to have this. This is going to be your constant companion in your life. I think that's one of the things I thought other people didn't have. I thought they didn't have fear or doubt or insecurity, and that I did. So I couldn't have what they had.
I love that you said that because I know for myself, I really resonate with that. Like I've been like, well, one day I'm just not going to be afraid. And then like there's rainbows and
I can have
butterflies
anything I want.
and
Yeah.
I will have everything that I desire because I will not be afraid anymore. And it's like, that's bullshit. That doesn't exist.
Doesn't
That
happen.
does not happen. Like we're always constantly growing and expanding and like in this way of like growth and like building more and desiring more once we've got this, being grateful for that, and then moving on to the next goal, whatever that may be, right? And so I think that I know for me, like I've told people in the past of in my mind, entrepreneurship is one of the fastest ways to spiritual like growth.
100%. Yes.
Right. And I had one person like look at me like I had three heads, and I just thought, okay, we're in. You're not the person to talk to about this. I love you, and we're not the person to talk to about this, like, because I was like, I don't know how you don't. I mean, if you're just sitting behind a computer all day and like doing your things, that's fine. There's like, we all are where we are, but I just am always pushing, and it feels like you are too. Like, how can I grow more? And I think as a coach, it's really important to continually do that so that we can support our clients, you know what I mean, and our programs in those ways, because then our clients are always following where we've been.
Totally. And we can't, it's like, we're the clearing for our clients, right? Like we actually just can't ask our clients or ask our clients. And I don't mean actually ask them, but invite them to step into their next level if we're not doing it ourselves. We just won't see it. It'll be in our blind spot, if we're not pushing the edge of where we're comfortable. And, it is growth, but it's also, it's the listening, right? It's the hearing what's being asked of you or what's being called of you. And it's probably going to scare you because it's divine. And it's like, it feels like you're not going to have what it takes, but that's the call, right? So, there's no accident. There's no reason something's on your heart and like calling to you and that you're afraid of it if it's not something that's meant for you to explore.
I love that. Say that again. I just want to let that land for people.
There's no reason that something's not on your heart and like scaring you if it isn't meant for you to step into or create in your life. Right. And that doesn't mean that it's going to succeed either. That thing, right? Like if you're being called to start a business, I don't know, it doesn't mean that business is going to succeed. It means that that's what you're being called to do for reasons you might not understand yet.
Yeah, I feel like that's a mic drop moment. Thank you for that. Mervet is saying in the comments she loves that as well. I think it's so important. Yeah, sometimes we're called into businesses, and like you said, it's an opportunity for growth in some way that we may not know, right?
Yeah.
Like it may not succeed in the way that we originally envisioned it, but it may teach us so many different things that the next iteration, the next idea, the next whatever is able to like just blow up, right? In this very profound way.
Yeah. Or it may work for us in ways we can't even understand and may not until we're on the other side, like, oh my gosh, maybe sometimes years later, like, oh, now that makes sense. And it might not even be directly related, but it's like, if that had not happened, which felt like a really big deal at the time, then I wouldn't be here, and that to me is, now I see that as like there's something divine about that. And I wouldn't have always said that. I would have been like, things happen for a reason, but I wouldn't have really understood what I meant. And now I get that there's like, we're not accidentally called to something, and we can't understand always what it is in the moment. And it's not an easy way to live your life. It takes a lot of practice to live your life that way.
It takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of courage, right? Like, I think, I often tell the stories of like my partner. I love him tremendously. And, he'll be like, why do you think that you need to do this? Why do you think that you need to take that class? Why? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know that I'm called to take this step in this moment. I can't give you the answers. Mr. CPA works in the insurance industry. I don't have the left brain logical answers in this moment, but I know that we'll see it eventually. Like, and that it's a very scary, and it's a different paradigm. It's a different way of living that our society is brought up not to, right?
Yeah, it's a 180. It's a total 180 from like pros and cons, it's us being called to actually play God. We're taught to try to play God in our own lives. If that's a word that you use, I call it God because it's easier than calling it something else, but like our higher power, whatever is leading us, like we're taught to try to like know better than that thing. and try to get ahead and like make sense of it and understand how it works. And it's like, it's so ego driven, and I get it, but it's such a 180 from what feels like the truth to me now, which is that we're being led in ways we can't understand until we can understand.
Right. And then it all makes sense. And we're like,
Yeah.
of course I was led to that networking event where I met that person who I didn't know why I was called to meet them, but I was,
Yeah.
So I love that. And I'm looking at the things behind you, Meghan, and I just want to like point out, like, I love that. And I love the thing up top that like I see the surrender, right? Like
those are my words of 2020, 2021. Yeah.
I love that.
Humility, commitment, surrender, kindness, intuition. Yeah, humility is a big one for me. Humility is like definitely my word of the year. Like to me, humility and surrender are sort of like joined together, like it takes humility to surrender. It takes like, I'm just a human, like I am an innocent human being who doesn't really understand how any of this works. And I'm willing to get on the path that's set out before me because I don't know anything, I don't know much here. I know things here, but I got to listen,
I love that. I've never connected humility with surrender in that way before, but I feel like it's so true. Because it does take a level of just saying, I don't know. And I'm just going to trust. And I've been diving into that deeper and deeper and deeper in my life as well lately, which is like, I know what I desire. I don't have any idea how to get there. I'm just going to let you take it, spirit, God, universe, like whatever that higher power. I'm just going to let you have it. And you just take me by the hands and you just lead me where I need to go. And I will do that as best as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My word of the year is connect. I love that. That's my, this one here, connection. That's a friend painted this for me. So it's also
that's
very
beautiful.
Isn't it lovely? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that color blue.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So what is your favorite problem to help your clients solve?
Oh man. My favorite problem to help my clients solve is really their relationship with themselves, that they're disconnected from how amazing they are. Like a lot of them are connected to how amazing they are here, but they aren't connected that they don't get that their worth has nothing to do with that. That's my favorite thing.
And I just want to back up for the audio people. Like when she says connected here, she's pointing at her head. And so then she's, talking about how they need to connect into their heart. And I'm realizing maybe we didn't say that earlier as well, but so I just want to apologize for our audio podcasters.
Thank you for that. Thanks for including those people who can't see us. Yeah. So my clients often are very sure of what they can accomplish from their head, from their ego, what they've been striving to accomplish. And they don't understand they'll say they understand, but they don't actually live their lives as though it's true that their worth has nothing to do with how they perform in the world. And that is a doozy to undo. That is not something that you can undo in a week, a month. Like that is a core belief that people have been carrying around for a very long time. Sometimes it's very subtle that their worth is attached to what they do, what they have, how they perform, how many people they can help, that they don't fully comprehend on a spiritual level how profoundly worthy they are.
Well, and also like they haven't embodied it yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's I think the biggest, for me, that's the thing that's been coming into my space a lot lately, is that we do know things cognitively, like in our brain, in our mind, in our ego, however you want to verbalize that. But we haven't, like, we can know, of course I'm worthy. Of course I'm amazing. Of course I am. But like to really feel it in our whole being, in our body is to me the work. Like that is
it is the work. And And so people don't come to me and say, hey, like, hey, Megan, can you connect me more to my heart and my greatness? They come to me because they're burnt out, because they think their worth is attached to their performance. So I help them, on paper, I help them solve burnout. I help them solve, martyrdom. I help them solve feeling dissatisfied. Like, those are the problems that it looks like I'm solving, which I am totally supporting them to solve. But the real work beneath that, like what that takes, is actually embodying exactly what you're talking about, like actually embodying that belief, which again is not an easy thing, because if we have our entire lives set up that if we don't blank, then either we're in trouble or somebody else is. Anytime we go to embody that our worth is our worth, we put at risk that other people aren't going to be okay, or we're not going to be okay, right? It's like, you can't just give it up so easily. This idea, if I think about parenthood or motherhood, right? Like, if I embody that my worth is separate than my performance, then I'm like, oh, well, if I tell myself that, then I'm going to stop working so hard. Then I'm not going to be able to raise my kids. I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. They're not going to be okay if I disconnect from my worth and my performance. But that's not true. So it's in that in-between space that's really uncomfortable for people while they're learning to embody it, because they're still pulled to like, yeah, but people aren't going to be okay if I don't take care of them.
I love that. And what's coming up for me is like bringing back the card that was pulled for today too. Like, the only way out is through.
Oh yeah. So good.
And there's like so many emotions in that
Mm-hmm.
in-between space, as you're talking about. And so tell me a little bit about like how you help people kind of move through those emotions so that they can like embody this work and get into it.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the work with my clients. And the tricky part about it is that when it's working is when it feels like it's not working. Like,
Right.
when the work is working, it feels like everything's kind of falling apart. And so it's like getting through that part, right? Where like the feelings are coming, you're like, this is not what I pictured, And so it's having people stay in the discomfort of that through the breakthrough, through the other side. And it's the way that I work with people is really building relationships.
Mm.
And so that they trust me, and they trust that when they're in the thick of that, when I say to them like, hey, this is when the work's working, this is what it looks like when it's working, that they believe me, that they can trust me, that they can say like, okay, I trust you. And sometimes they can't. Sometimes they're like, nope, I think that I need to take a break from coaching and go and deal with this thing. And I'm like, okay, I trust you, right? If that's what you're called to do, then that's what you're called to do. And that might be exactly perfect for them. But sometimes they just get really scared. They start to bump up against some stuff that they can't quite look at yet. And it's not for me to say if it's the right time for them to look at it or not, So all I can do is keep reflecting to them like, hey, you're doing the work that you need to do, and here's why. And they get to choose from there.
Yeah, I love that. What that comes up for me with that, Megan, is like there's this balance between holding the space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being the coach and holding the space and holding the vision for what that client desires. And then the humility and the surrender.
Yeah.
Having the humility and the surrender of they're on their own path.
Exactly.
I trust where they are going. I trust that they'll get there, and honoring whatever decision may be made.
Totally. And like, I have no idea how they're supposed to get there, like how they're supposed to get to embody this work. It may be with me, it may not be. It may be with me and then not in the back. Like, I just don't know. And so to me, the service is, like you said, just showing up, holding the space, holding the possibility that they can't quite see yet, reflecting it to them and letting them choose, because they get to choose.
I love that. This is so delicious. This is so delicious. So, what else do you see on the horizon for you?
That's a great question. So, this is like, Celeste, I'm in the middle of this phase where I'm like, the less I do, the more successful my business is. And
I
I want
love
more of
that.
that.
I love that. Oh my God. What a
It's like,
paradigm shift right there.
it's so wild. It's so wild. And people have been saying that to me for years. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
And like, I'm just now like this far into my business. Not that it's 4 years. It's not that long, but now I'm like, I've been doing so much work, so much spiritual work. And a lot of recovery work as well, which is spiritual work. And the more space I take, the more clients fall out of the sky. It's just like, like I just take care of myself. And so I think what's for me this year, this 2021 really is for me a year of like sinking into that a little bit, like really resting a lot, taking like excellent care of myself, like just learning to listen, giving myself enough space in my schedule that if my body says like, okay, we need to go lay down now, I can actually listen to that.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm making a ton of money while I'm doing it. Like I love your intro. It's like we're women who are making a lot of money and we're of service. I can't remember exactly what you said, but
Breaking all the
like
rules.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like I work basically 3 days a week. Even on those days, I have breaks in my schedule that I can go and lay down. I go for a walk every single day. I'm with my kids in the morning. I'm with my kids in the evening, and I'm making really good money, and so for me, this year is about playing with that a little bit. And then what's next for me is really bringing, I think it's to actually bring more spirituality into my, like my brand. Because
Hmm.
it's kind of right now, like it's it's more and more like it just is a part of my coaching because it just is. I don't know how to not have it be. But it's not really in my marketing. It's not really like I don't call myself a spiritual coach really. Although more and more, I just launched a program. I changed the name of it. It's a group coaching for mom, and I changed the name for moms. I changed the name to Divine Motherhood, and that felt really like, ooh, like I don't know if I can call it that. It feels scary to me,
Yeah.
who still has one foot in the world of like left brain logic. Like people don't want to hear about spirit. Um, so I think it's like bringing spirituality in a form to women who can hear it, who aren't ready to hear like God or the like aren't ready to pull cards,
Right.
aren't there yet. Like bringing that to women who are um, spiritual-ish or like spiritually curious or spiritually homeless or spiritually reluctant, but feel this. That's kind of how I was 5 years ago. I was like, I have this really great life, and yet I feel like my heart's not being seen. And I don't really know what that means. And like, just bringing that more and more overtly to people, I guess, is what I see what's next for me.
I love that. And I love how you dipped into some of your self-care practices. And
Mhm.
so I just want to like ask a little deeper, like what are some of your favorite self-care practices?
Yeah. So when I wake up in the morning, uh, this has taken me a long time to work out like a routine that works for me, and then it always changes. But right now, I wake up in the morning and I spend half an hour in prayer meditation. So, whatever that means. I'm actually doing a Course in Miracles right now, too.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I listen to the Course in Miracles. Marianne Williamson does like a daily video for each lesson. So, I listen to that. I usually do a bit of clearing and writing and then just sitting in silence. And then once I've got my kids off to school, I've got two little kids who are 6 and 3. So then it's like, I'm in mom mode. I usually stretch in the morning as well while I'm doing my sort of prayer meditation time. And then I get my kids off. And then I almost every day I go for a walk. I go for at least a 30-minute walk. And I usually call a friend and chat with them on my walk and just connect with somebody. And then I have a lunch break built into my day
Mm.
most days. I'm still working on Thursdays. My Thursday's a little wonky, but I'm working on it. I have a lunch break built into my days, which is really important to me to stop and eat like a nourishing meal. And that's about it. And then in terms of like, structures in my workday. And then, like I said, I have breaks built into my day and I won't schedule things back to back for the most part. I'll leave at least a 15-minute break, ideally longer between calls. That's a really important one for me because I'm not doing anyone any favors if I'm back to back to back. You're just not getting the best of me if I do that. But that's taken work to do that, because my striving wants me to like pack it all in. If I don't, my business will fail. If I don't talk to this person this week, they won't hire me, and then I'll never have any clients again, like all of that stuff. So it takes work to get there, to like let spirit lead me and be like, you actually will do better if you leave space in your calendar. Say no to that person and just watch what happens, So I've really been working on that. And then I try to be in bed by 10:30. I know you didn't ask for my daily schedule, but that's kind of how I relate to my self-care, is like, what do I need to take on each day? What are my like non-negotiables that are built into my day, so that I'm at my very best, so I can actually like hear spirit. Like if I'm exhausted, I can't hear my higher power very well, because my fear is too loud.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think it's so important. And what really struck me when you were talking about like having space between calls, because I'm really big about that too. I have a minimum of 15 minutes between every single call, just like you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Mondays are only podcast days. That's the only, like I don't meet
Mondays
with anybody else.
Same.
Like
Yeah.
maybe I'll have a doctor appointment in the morning, but like that's it, right? Like, and then Fridays, if you want to meet me in person, great. But the rest of the days, like those are my Zoom days, and those are like, and even then I have schedules and of like, okay, I'll do a max number of these meetings and whatever. But again, just like you were saying, it took me years to cultivate, to be able to say, I can have more space. I can have more me time and more self-care time. And so I love how you shared all of that. And for anyone who's listening or watching, like, I just want to say, like, do what you feel called to do, right?
Totally.
Like, I used to be like, oh, you read all these books and these are the millionaire success secrets and blah, 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 blah. And people get up at 5:30 in the morning.
Nope.
I don't work well at 5:30 in the morning.
Me neither.
Like I sleep very well until 6:45, 7:00. And that is perfect for me. Like that is just my rhythm. And like when we are able to say, like, I can take as much space and as much time, and just like you were saying, nobody's going to die. I'm going to get other clients, people aren't going to.
I'll get more clients. That's the thing. Like it really is like, the more space I make, the more I create a clearing for people who need to work with someone like me, who's created this kind of life,
I love that. And I feel like that's an incredible belief for people to learn how to embody. Right? Like to really be able to soak that in and feel that in every part of their body. The better I take care of myself, the more people I'm able to serve.
Yeah.
And
the more time I take for me. Totally.
Right.
The better I take care of me, the more money I'll make. The more space I put in my life, the more money I'll make. Like it. And I keep being like, okay, I've definitely hit the limits of this. Like it can't get any better than this. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I can charge more and work less, like there's just so much possibility. And I really do want to be a beacon of that. Not a beacon, like I don't have to shout it from the mountaintops, but if I live my life that way, I believe it has an impact on the people I'm serving. And I believe it has an impact on the people who will come to me for my service.
I love that. I also just want to like acknowledge Marvette. She said,
yes,
she thinks that more and more people want it, but don't even know what to do to start. And she was talking about, that was a comment in relation to the spirituality, people not knowing that they desire that. So we can't always say those words. And that's something that, I personally work on. How do you say it without saying it, so that the people who really want it and are looking for it can find it. But then the other people who don't know that that's what they're looking for, but it really is what they're looking for, can find it as well. Right. Like
totally. I actually, last year, a girlfriend and I started working on a podcast, and she's since decided she doesn't want a podcast in her life, but it was like a working title for it was like spiritually reluctant, or like spiritual, conversations with real people about spirituality that are like kind of low gradient, and like, because it was interesting because her background was very religious growing up, and still she's quite religious in that sense, but she's starting to be like, I don't love all of it. And mine was more like not at all religious, like agnostic or atheist, or maybe, I'm not sure. And coming to, so we're sort of like meeting in the middle, which is such a cool thing. Right. And I talked to a lot of people about it, and they're like, yeah, I don't know how to be spiritual, but because it feels like I've only got these two options. Like I could be religious or I can be like a witch or something, and I don't really know
Right.
what's in between, you know? And so there are people who really are dying for this conversation and just don't know how to get in on the ground floor. Um, so I think it's important, like you said, I think it's important to speak to those people if you feel called to it. And I do feel called to it. That's something I feel really called to.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it, Megan. I feel like you and I could talk all day about this for sure. I mean, this
Yeah.
has been such a juicy conversation, and I feel like everyone is going to get so much value out of this. So I super appreciate it. And I know that you have a free gift for our listeners. So can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that?
Yeah. So I developed it as a tool for anti-procrastination. It's called the Divine Nine. And the premise of it is Celeste will provide you a link to it, and I've got a little bit of instruction, and then you can download a PDF. But it's kind of like my premise about procrastination is that it's just a disconnect from your greatness. It's just fear, right? If you're procrastinating, you're scared, and you're disconnected from your greatness and your light and your worth. So it's a tool designed to acknowledge that you're going to be scared, right? So it's the Divine Nine. So the first three things are like, what does your fear need today? You know, what will
Mhm.
you do to address your fear? So for me, like I do a journaling exercise in the morning that clears out my fear. Um, going for a walk really helps me with fear because it just gets me out of my head and sees how big the world is. Sometimes I need a hug, right? But it's like, what can I be responsible for? Knowing I'm a human being, knowing I'm going to get scared every single day. What can I take responsibility for? What's three things that I'll do that'll address that fear a little bit? So that's the first three, and then the second three items are how will I connect to my greatness? So how do you remember how wonderful you are, right? Like, will you call a friend today and have them remind you? Will you, I look at some of this stuff. This is my, remind
Yeah.
myself like this is who I am. All of that other stuff is just fear, right? This is who I am. Will I journal about how wonderful I am? Will I do 10 jumping jacks? Will I, like whatever makes me feel amazing? Will I go put my feet in the grass? Like just whatever will ground me. So they're related, but they're slightly different. Like my fear, what does my fear need? And then how will I grow this other part of me to get back to like who I really am? Maybe I'll go and read a client testimonial, Um, and then the third sort of section is about what are the top three things I want to take on today that are meaningful and will really move my bigger projects forward. So
Mm.
not like, I got to call the bank, but like I need to like go and reach out to 4 people today because I said I would reach out to 4 people. It's uncomfortable to me, but I know I need to reach out to 4 people a day to keep my business running or whatever it is, right? Or I need to go write that article I've been putting off. The things that get you out of your comfort zone that you're like, I know I need to do that, but I'm scared. Those are the things you want to put. What would make me feel really good to move forward today? Just 3 things. That's it. And then I also have a spot underneath that's called little fires. So those are the things like call the bank, when you get stuck on the bigger stuff, when you're like, oh, I don't know what to write next, or like, I don't know if I can say this, or I'm really in my head, go and take care of some little stuff. Call the bank, write that email, like just get your momentum back, get yourself back into motion. So that's the Divine Nine tool. It's intended to just get you back into action, keep you a little bit focused, remember who you are, acknowledge that you're going to have fear and it's just a regular part of your life. Because it's when people think that their fear means something, they get in trouble, right? Oh, I'm scared. I must not want this badly enough. I'm scared. Maybe this isn't for me. It's like, no, you're just a human being. It's your ego's job to make you try to stop. So it just needs something. Your ego needs a little bit of love and attention. That's all.
Yeah, the ego is really just trying to keep you safe and alive. At
Yeah.
the end
It
of the
just,
day, that's all it's doing.
yeah.
It's trying to be your friend in that way, and so it tries to, like, hold you back.
Yeah. And
It's not that
it's not right. That's its
yeah,
job.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I love that. I am so grateful for you sharing that tool with us, and so if you're interested in finding Megan's free gift, you can find that at divinefeminineLeaders.com/Meghan, which is Meghan
That's me.
hyphen Smith. So
Perfect.
you'll be able to find that at divinefeminineLeaders.com/Meghan hyphen Smith. And I'm just so honored to have had you here today, Meghan. Thank you so much for being with us. I mean, I'm just if anybody wants to reach out to Meghan, please do so. You can definitely do so through my website. I'm sure you can find her on social media.
Yep.
And her website is megansmithcoaching.com. So
thank you so much, Celeste. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. And so thank you to all of our listeners. We love you so much. We're so deeply grateful for if you watched us live, if you caught us on the replay, if you're listening to this audibly, please let us know, like, share how you feel called, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye. This has been the Divine Feminine Leaders Podcast with Celeste Hartwell. Thank you so much for joining us today. There are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and you have chosen to spend your time with us. That is not lost on us, and we are deeply appreciative. If you want to find us online, find all the links and the free giveaways that were mentioned in the show, please join us at celestehartwell.com. That is CelesteHartwell. And you can link to this episode as well as any other episode there. If you enjoyed this episode and the content that we shared, I invite you to subscribe so that you get notifications every time a new episode is released. Or share it with a friend. If you know another female entrepreneur who could benefit from this information, we would love for you to share the love. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.